Hi, everyone. Welcome to How We Heal. This is Noel. Today, my guest is Alison McCook, born and raised in Philadelphia, proud Philadelphian, who's been a writer and editor for over 2 decades, Alison. Since 2001, she's written on health and consumer health and science for these over 2 decades. Some accolades are the work she's done in the periodical world and also the Philadelphia Inquirer or the
Philadelphia Inquirer,
Philadelphia Inquirer, a paper I know well. Cannot list the amount of articles that she's published, but some of her well-known work is in Scientific American and Discover and, of course, Reuters. And she has spent years as the editor of Retraction Watch. And I'm going to ask her to tell us more about that because that's investigative journalism. So I want to welcome you today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. And let's ask you how you got to be you. How did Alison McCook become the writer and author she is?
Wow, what a great question. I don't think people get asked that enough. Can I just say that? I think people don't often have an opportunity to say how they became who they are. I think I always was a writer. My mother used to tell this story that, when you go to a restaurant and they see there's a kid, they'll give you a kid's menu, which is a paper with like this empty space on it and you can do designs or whatever. And when I would go, I had a friend growing up who became an artist, a photographer. And when I would go to restaurants with her, she would draw on her little kids' placemats and I would write a story. So I never drew. I'm not very artistic, with drawing or painting or anything like that, but I always liked writing and telling stories. And I think it was just in me from the beginning, but I also think my life circumstances led to it. I was an only child, so I spent a lot of time by myself, and I was a very sensitive kid. I'm still a sensitive kid, if to be honest. And so the world was often overwhelming for me, and I would need time alone. I always just needed a lot of time alone to process everything. Writing was a really good way for me to do that. And I never really kept journals. When I would be going through something really intense, I would keep a diary just because it was too much to leave it all in my head. I had to get it out somehow. But day-to-day life more, I would just write stories, and a lot of them were rooted in my life. Some were completely made up, but it was just a tool I always used. And then
And
so I
we're
knew I
talking
always wanted.
always,
Yeah,
Allison, and we're
yeah,
talking grade school always? Like
yeah,
from way back? Oh, wow.
yeah. And they weren't. I mean, these were not great works of literature. Let me be clear. And a lot of it, I went to a kind of hippy dippy school in the woods that my parents sent me to, thankfully, and they really encouraged writing. That was like a nightly assignment that they had the kids do, was write in their journals, and I loved it. I looked forward to it, so I did keep it up. But I wouldn't write every day or anything like that. But it was always something I used in times where I had a lot of feelings and a lot to process. And then also just something I knew I loved to do and wanted that. I'd never encountered anything in my whole life going through high school and college that I liked as much as writing. So I knew I
Great,
wanted
great,
to
you
do it.
found it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel really lucky. And actually, because it made the only thing that was difficult about knowing that was thinking, well, how am I supposed to make money? Because I was very concerned
Good
always that,
question.
I have to support myself. And I didn't see myself as the starving artist type like that. I know people like that. And that I just never felt like I would be comfortable living that way. It's probably anxiety and just needing to know that I was going to be able to support myself.
So tell
So
us,
I did,
were parents writers? Were either a parent a
no,
writer? Any family member that was close to you?
no,
Really? Wow.
yeah. Yeah, so it is weird that way that I don't know where it came from, because from the beginning it was something I knew and people would talk to me about. And sometimes as gifts for people at Christmas I would write something for them, which now seems so egotistical. Just like,
I don't know.
look what I did, this is my gift for you, what I did. And
Well, it
yeah, it's
is a
just
gift, isn't it?
I can't imagine doing that now. But yeah, no, it was it's interesting. I have no idea where it came from.
Hmm.
But so then, thinking, well, what do I want to do for a job? And what do I eat at earliest college? What do I want to major in? And I loved reading and writing. So the natural idea would be English. My terror at finding a job with an English degree was just too much. I didn't think that I could get a job as a writer with an English degree because everyone who does an English degree graduates wanting to be a writer. I mean, or a lot of them do, and so I felt like I would have a better chance of making a career for myself if I had a trade besides writing, if I knew something about a certain subject that I could then write about. And I happened to take a biology class in college and I liked it. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll be a science writer, thinking that was my ticket. And so I majored in biology, even though it was so crushingly hard. I mean, any English class I took, I did absolutely fine with. It was easy. I loved reading. I loved the homework. Biology was really, really hard. And so I actually, though, part of me liked that about it because college was not as expensive as it is now, but it
So
still
where did
felt.
you go to school? Tell us.
I graduated from McGill in Montreal, which now is very popular, but then these are the 90s. It was not popular at all. And it was a very hard school. It had more of a, from what I understand, a European model in which you decide what you're either going to major in science or the arts from the beginning. So you enroll in one of those two schools and all your classes or most of your classes are really in those areas. It's not like a well-rounded sort of liberal arts education. And so I enrolled in the science school and it was really hard. I mean, a lot of people failed. I mean, the first test I took in my biology course, I got an E in it, which I didn't think was
What's an
possible.
E? What's an
And
E?
he was like, and the Canadians also grade differently. Like their A is 80 and above is an A. So that's how hard the tests are. I got a 50 something and that worked out to be an E. It wasn't an
Wow.
F, but it was still failing. So it really, but then this sort of like masochistic part of me was glad that it was so hard because it felt like I was getting my money's worth, which is ridiculous. And now that I think about it, I wanted the pain of it. I wanted to work at something because it felt like it was hard won, the
Right. So
degree, like I earned it.
you took science because you wanted to get a job at the end of this journey.
Yeah.
And you thought if you could bring writing skills to science, you might actually have a specialty, right? A specialty. But that is hard to
Yes.
get through. You're right. Those classes are hard.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it worked out. And afterwards, I worked for a year at a medical writing company and then I did a degree in journalism at New York University in science journalism specifically. There weren't that many programs, but there was one there. And that right from there, I started doing internships and I got a job after graduating at Reuters, which was the newswire in their health news department. And what was great about that was I got to write every day. It was 4 stories a day. So it was,
Wow.
I know it was really, it took me a while to work up to that. And they said, you're not going to start this and write 4 stories a day. You have to work up to it. And it took me a few months. But then I got there and that's what everybody did. And you just, so I did the math. And while I was there, I wrote like over 2,000 stories for them. And
Whoa.
to the point where I would like weeks later or months later, I would look up. You'd always, because they'd be each one on a different topic, and you'd have to do a little research about what's been said about the topic before. And I would look in our archives and pull up a story, and I'd have no idea if I wrote it or not. Because the only way to do it is to just have the information kind of flow through you like a conveyor belt. And so you're in it while it's in front of you. And then after you submit it, it's just gone.
You
Like at the
downloaded.
end
You
of yeah,
downloaded the information.
yeah. Because you had to make room for the next thing that was coming in front of you that you had to be focused on.
So tell
And
us how does Reuters work? Is it a wire service that people buy
yeah.
the articles from?
Yeah, so that's how at least that's how it was where I was. Where I was at the time, we would have subscribers who would then be able to use our content for their website or their magazine or whatever. And it would always say Reuters and often have my name on it by Alison McCook, but not always. And that was the subscriber model that they used.
That's a really good school for learning to write.
It was, yeah. That's exactly how I think of it. That writer's block was just not an option. There's no writer's block. But also, to be fair, writer's block, I think a lot of that comes from a lack of, not an inability to write, but an inability of ideas or lack of ideas. Like
Mhm.
you don't know. don't have the creative juices flowing. Journalism is different, especially in that model. I wasn't thinking of 4 stories a day. I mean, sometimes I would say, this is a cool idea, or I went to this conference and they would let me do it. But for the most part, here's this study that came out in a medical journal that says caffeine is good or bad for you, or something like that. And
Okay.
you'd write up what the results say, and you'd get into the background of it. You'd call one of the scientists and get them to say why this was important or what the caveats are they'd have. And so in that sense, it would kind of write itself. Once you get that formula down, you wouldn't ever be like, what am I going to say here? Because the information was all there. So
Right.
it
You
made
just
it
had to,
easier.
well, you crafted it so a good article could be put together. But did you learn anything from writing all this? 2,000 articles? I mean, did you remember some of the details? Was it inspiring at all?
It did help me. I think at that time, a lot of people would come to me and think I was some health expert, because I was reading this new medical data all the time and talking to experts all the time. And they'd ask me like, oh, should I be taking a multivitamin? Or what about so and so? Or, should I drink whole or skim milk? And a lot of it, I think I ended up getting this sort of, I don't know, I had this sort of 80,000 feet or whatever the phrase is. I realized that the ups and downs of everything wouldn't matter as much as the big picture. And there's so much that we're learning and then dislearning about, or unlearning, I guess, about health, that we think something's good and then something else comes out and we realize, oh, actually, it's not good. Or there's so many nuances that are to health information that I'm sure you know about completely, but that you're only getting a little piece of the picture, I think, with these individual studies, and there's no one answer for everything. And so I would often say, don't take supplements, don't do any of this stuff, because we're going to learn something else about it in a year, and then something else about it in 2 years, and it's always just going to keep going. And
That's good
so
advice. Yeah.
I just the day to day of it stopped being so important to me, which was strange given that my job was keeping track of the day to day. But in my own life, I ended up feeling like, yeah, I never took supplements. I do now, mind you, that I don't do all that writing, I think. But while I was in it and I was learning how the sausage of health information is made,
The
I realized,
sausage.
yeah, this is, just like common sense, talk to your doctor. And
Common
yeah.
sense. Yeah. So that was a big piece of your career. How long were you there?
I was there for a few years, and then they ended up closing that whole division, which is the story of journalism. You're doing something, cooking along, it's going well, and then one day you get a call saying, "Yeah, you're all gone in 2 weeks." And I went to work for myself, which I sort of go back and forth of having a staff job and then writing as a freelancer, I guess, and write articles for hire for different outlets. And so then I went freelance, and Reuters became someone who hired me just to write. I would write 1 article a day for them, and then for other people too. So honestly can't say how many stories I've written for Reuters in the past, but it's been a while. It's been a minute now, for sure.
Oh, wow. And most of these articles are focused on science for
They're
the
like
most
health.
part?
Most of those were health information, but yeah. But then because I had this biology degree, I could use it as leverage and say, hey, do you need someone who can understand a medical study or a scientific study, anything about chemistry or physics or anything like that? I had some basic understanding of, but I also learned too, because with science, you learn a lot in your degree, but then it's like the health information, it can become useless in a few years because science is always updating itself. Like the textbooks I spent all that money on for college were trash in 5 years because there was nothing in there about all the new discoveries that they'd had since that would
Right.
update all that information. I think what my science degree did mostly was give me the confidence to move around in that world, so that if someone gave me a topic about science, and chances are I wasn't an expert in it, but I had the confidence to call the experts and say, "Can you tell me a little bit about this?" And be okay with not knowing the answer, because that's, you're going to them for the answer. And I think that can be intimidating for a lot of people to call a scientist and,
Well, and not
not
you, though. Not you.
understand their world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes so much sense. You've created a door, like there's always been a door for specialties in writing. Just if you don't do the homework, how do you open the door? That makes so much sense to me. Yeah, good for you. So you built a career on this science piece. And have you been writing other than science all these years?
It's interesting. I think I had
Or
so
health?
much anxiety about supporting myself, especially journalism is not the most reliable field of work, that I focused so much on just my bottom line and always trying to find new work, new jobs, new clients. And I didn't leave enough mental and creative energy to do other kinds of writing. And I had this real like sort of turning point that happened at COVID, because COVID was the time where the world, I think, realized the value of science journalists, that
Yeah.
all of a sudden there was all this new information coming out directly from the scientists who are working on the COVID virus. But the average person couldn't understand what they were saying. And science journalists are kind of like these translators where they'll
Oh, that
talk to
makes
the
sense. Yeah.
experts and say, okay, here's what it means to you in your everyday. Like, are they saying it's safe for you to go get groceries? Are they saying you need to wash your vegetables or whatever? And in some ways, but I had this opposite reaction to what you'd think. You'd think that I would be like, finally, everyone gets it. And all this hard work I've been doing pays off, that I can now, everyone pays attention to what we're saying now. This is great. A great time to be a science journalist. The thing that COVID did for me is that it showed me that how much else was interesting about COVID that had nothing to do with the science of the virus. And it was really surprised me in a way, because COVID exposed all these inequities that we had in society, the problem of homelessness and poverty and racial inequities and all these other problems that we had been existing all along. When COVID came and all our social supports disappeared, we realized just how much suffering was going on in the world. And also the unequal suffering that happened with COVID, the
Right.
way our medical system was totally insufficient to handle it. And our local governments were insufficient to handle all the people who suddenly couldn't get the resources that they had before. And so I realized, to me, what was interesting, the least interesting part of COVID was the science of it. It was all the social aspects of it. And so it also timed to when my father actually died in the early months of COVID. And then I'm sure that was part of why the science of the virus became less interesting to me.
Mm,
I'm positive that had a big part of it,
really?
because he had had dementia and he'd been in a nursing home, and my mother had already died. So I was his caregiver. I was the person who took care of him. He had a girlfriend, but I was his, medical power of attorney and all the things, emergency contact, all the things. And,
Yeah.
in March 2020, they call me and say, we're locking our doors and you can't come see him. And I just was not expecting that at all. So
Mm,
for 6 months, I didn't see him at all. Once we were able to, they arranged through a glass door
right.
meetups with family, or they would wheel him down to the first floor, and through the locked front doors, I could try to, communicate with him. But he actually, he had a strange form of dementia. He has what Bruce Willis has, if that means anything to people.
Okay.
It was a type of frontotemporal dementia that started with aphasia, which is where you lose your words. So he
Right.
couldn't talk very well for years before he died. And he recognized me, but he couldn't communicate with me, and he couldn't even understand language at that point. So even if
Wow.
you're trying to explain to him, she can't come in the door, like you can't see her the way, she can't hold your hand or any of the things I used to do. He just didn't understand. He was really upset. So the whole thing, especially in people with nursing homes, that I understand why they had to, close the doors to visitors, but it took such a toll on him. and that
Oh, I'm
whole
so sorry.
community. So he died in September of 2020. And they were, I really think that the staff where he was were amazing. They called me the night before because the signs, they could tell that he was close to dying and they wanted to give me a chance to see him. And so I went. I spent, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 hours with him in the full PPE, with
Right. Fully
the
protected.
gear. Yeah. So I don't think he knew it was me or anything. But that sitting on his deathbed, just kind of waiting for him to die, I started writing for myself for the first time in maybe since I was a kid, because I'd just been so focused on science journalism that I hadn't, yeah, just written something for myself that wasn't for work at all.
Wow.
And it was just it was because it was another one of those big moments of like, this is a lot to take in. And I just needed to express myself somehow. And I was the only one in the room with him. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. And I didn't want to, because sometimes when it's a really big experience, I just didn't know anybody who could relate at all to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started writing, and at the time I was working for a science magazine that had hired me to help scientists write op-eds that we'd pitch to magazines or newspapers, magazines. And so I ended up turning what I wrote at my dad's bedside into an op-ed that was just about what an experience of watching a loved one who's been isolated because of the pandemic just slowly decline over time and die. And I sent it to my boss and she said, let's pitch it. And because I was in Philadelphia, I pitched it to the Philadelphia Inquirer and they ran it. And I had this feeling of I'd never published anything like that before. I mean, it was first person, so personal
Yeah.
about my father and about
Yeah.
the caregiving experience I'd had with him, which was like 10 years of
Wow. Wow.
just culminating in this death during the pandemic, not of COVID. It was just his decline time happened to coincide with.
Yeah. Pandemic.
Yeah. And so and the images with it were like pictures of me as a child with him too in the newspaper. And
So vulnerable.
it was so surreal to see it because my whole career up till then I'd been so removed. Like my picture was never in the paper, never with the articles I was writing. The pictures were of the people I was writing about. It had nothing to do with me.
So that's incredible that you would do that.
Well, I don't know, it felt easy though, too.
Hmm.
I mean, it was terrifying, but it also felt natural, I guess, in a way I can't really describe. And I think I'm positive also a lot of it had to do with my relationship with him. For some reason, I will never understand why he and I just had a tough relationship. And there was something about our dynamic that affected my confidence, my belief in myself. And I don't fully know what it is. I'm working on it, obviously, trying to unpack all of it. I have been for
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
And I think when he died, I felt that confidence that I had never felt because I'd never had life without him before. And I will say I know he loved me, but there was just something about the way he was with me and the way he expressed that feeling that didn't feel good to me. So yeah, when he died, I felt free to try things, take risks that I didn't have the confidence for before. And it was immediate. Obviously, I'm at his deathbed and
The
it's
article.
coming, it's starting to come, as I'm sitting there with him. There
Wow.
was, confusion about the relationship between those two things. And so, yeah, ever since then, that feeling of writing something that had nothing to do with science and that was really about my life and my experience, I got kind of hooked on that. And so I just started pitching more and more op-eds to the Inquirer. And when they had a job opening, I applied. And that's how they hired me knowing I had a science background and I used it. But frankly, a local paper doesn't do a lot with science. It was mostly politics, national and local, and just what's happening on the ground with people and a lot of feelings and helping people tell their own stories, which felt like such a privilege and really moving. And
Hmm.
beautiful. So I really loved it. I've kind of never looked back on the whole science of the virus stuff. I love that other people do that because I think it's incredibly important. But I feel like that chapter is kind of over for me now.
Well, it's that's a great story, by the way, Allison. Great. As painful as it is for you and your dad and the world to hear, what a great story. It sounds like in some form at that moment of end, there was this great gift of your freeing you freed yourself, and maybe your dad was part of the decision. Maybe he wanted you to be free. I don't know. How that ended.
You're gonna make me cry now, Kiera.
I'm going to cry because well,
I'm still that sensitive kid, so be careful now what
I
you
am
say.
going to be. I'm going to be careful. I'm feeling so. I'm feeling so moved. My sister, and I've never shared this anywhere, but this is how I relate to it. My sister died of AIDS, and I was her caregiver. And she was very young. She was 31, and I was 33, and she was my only living family at that time. My parents were already gone, and I was young, and she was young. She died so quickly. And I changed everything for me because I said, what am I waiting for?
Yeah.
Said, look how she died in like 9 months, she was gone.
Oh,
And I watched it happen. And it was like the time of birth, 9 months to her death. And I told myself immediately after, I said, you can't wait to live your life anymore. You can't. If you don't do it now, it could be over. And I gave myself permission to to live in all these ways, amazing ways, including having children, which I would never have done without her. When she passed, it woke that up. It woke up. I woke up. So I really relate to, and I just want to say it's so brave of you to write that story about that experience and give it to the world. That's so courageous. Amazing.
well, I mean, I think the caregiving story,
Hmm.
everyone either has it or is going to have it.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you're lucky, at least like there will be people in your life that you love who will die and you're going to have to take care of them or you're going to want to take care of them. And yeah, I mean, I think obviously losing my father was a big deal, but right before he was diagnosed with dementia, my mother had been sick for years. So it was almost a 15-year stretch where I was caring for one or both parents. It was from like 29 to 44, sort of
Oh,
this peak time where everyone's saying, oh, you must be working so hard or starting a family or doing all these things, these sort of laying the bones for your adult life. And I just wasn't really able to do that in the same way that my peers could. And I
yeah.
think the caregiving experience it brings up so much of your history, your relationship with the person and all the old resentments and the love and the intensity of the life you've had with them all comes out. But it also has this, like you said, this freeing experience. So now, I mean, most of my writing is more personal. At least if it's not about me, it's rooted in things that I've experienced that then I can turn into something fictional. But it's all about learning from my life and looking at it in a real way, and also the world around me, and not just moving past something I experienced, but sitting with it and thinking, well, why can't I stop thinking about this? What did it really mean to me? And I mean, it's a very intense place to be, but it also is so healing. Like you said, like I'm doing the kind of writing that I probably should have been doing all along, but was too afraid to do.
Well, yeah. I'm very moved, and I often think of my siblings and as a springboard to the life I'd always never could give myself and always wanted. And I
Your
always,
siblings.
yeah, my sibling, my sister, that when she died, that she gave
Oh,
me
yes.
a gift
Yes.
of an awakening that I was not able to find otherwise.
Hmm.
And I thank her. Just, I do, but
And I've thanked my parents. I mean, I love the way you're thinking about it, and I'm going to hold on to that because I think that's a really beautiful way of thinking about it. Because the way I've been grateful to my parents is that I can write about them now because they're not here. And so I don't feel
That's true.
like I'd be way too nervous to do. If my dad was alive, I would have not come on this podcast and talked about our relationship. I would have had the insight into it, and I also would have been way too self-conscious and afraid of upsetting him. So it's kind of a gift in that they're a terrible gift, obviously,
Yes, yes, a
that they're
terrible.
not here and that I don't have siblings. I'm free to say what I want without the risk of severing a relationship, because I still believe, all this talk about career, the most people are the most important thing we have. Our relationships, our family, our friends. I wouldn't want to jeopardize any of that for an article or anything.
Yeah, yeah. That's called, yes, integrity.
Well, it's
And
fear also. Like, I don't want to be alone. I don't want
here,
to lose these people.
it's just amazing when we lose that foundation that we grew up in, the family we grew up in, how it, as horrible as it is, how, I don't know, it's like in a sense, it's there's a reconnection to self that I believe happens. There's a reconnecting to ourselves that when we allow ourselves to feel, because you have to go through it. You can't go around it. You know, I haven't been able to go around it and grow at all. I have to go through it.
What? Oh, yeah.
Go through the grief and the feelings, having the feelings. So
Well,
you can
that's much healthier than going around it, I think.
can't going
Because,
around it is you're stuck. You're
yeah.
stuck. So you've
Yeah. And I think also when your family is alive, you see yourself through their eyes a bit. Like
Mhm.
it took me after my mother and I were very, very close. And I'm going to try and say this without crying. I may not, but it took me 10 years, I think, after she died to not always think, well, what would she say if she were here?
Hmm.
What would she think? What would she want me to do? And it's only been recently I've realized that I've made decisions. I've been able to make decisions that didn't include her at all. Sometimes people who knew her would say, well, what would your mom think of this? And I would say, well, I don't care anymore, which to me was huge
Hmm.
because when she was alive, her opinion meant everything. But when it stops meaning anything, you're free to be who you are. And I loved her so, so, so much. This is
Hmm.
not a dig at her at all. It was just, I'm not her, and I have to make my own decisions. And some of the things I do, I know she wouldn't be happy with. But that's okay, because it's my
That's great.
life. It has nothing to do with her. But I wouldn't have been able to do that when she was alive.
Oh, wow. Well, it sounds like you've had a incredible teacher, in your mom, and she had a lot of power because of that. That she was
Yeah.
so important to you, but she gave you that connection. What a connection. It's love.
Yeah.
That's unconditional love. How do you
Yeah.
we have that in our lives? We're lucky.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful. When I think about my decisions now, I go, I will not make an excuse or an apology for who I am. All
Oh,
the decisions are good or bad. They are mine, and I do not apologize to
when you're
anyone.
able to really be that and live
Oh,
that way.
absolutely. Yes, 100%. And I do things that no one else will understand. But I've come to this place after over 30 years of being without parents and family.
Yeah.
And now I have
Yeah.
learned to love every nook and cranny, no matter how dirty and dark it is. Laugh and also learn from the things I do that are less than perfect for me, that I can do better in the future about.
So interesting how family is so loving and such a source of love. Like, I know I learned how to love from my mother, and she just meant everything to me. But this fact that you grow so much without them, like in some ways that, I don't know, it's hard for me to even articulate. But what you're saying is almost like, it sounds like you're able to live your life more fully now than you could before.
Absolutely. I mean, they blessed me, as horribly painful as it was for, and I'm still sad every day. They gave me this incredible gift of an entire life without them. And yet I had the foundation from them I needed.
Yeah.
And it's just the imperfection of it. I like that it's so painful and imperfect, yet wow, would I've pushed myself the ways I have to grow and give myself permission. I had to give myself permission. I know I wouldn't have if they were alive. I just wouldn't have.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of at the beginning of my journey in that because it's been a little over 5 years since my dad
Well,
died. But I feel exactly what you're saying that, and part of it I think is that I'm 51 years old, and I think the older I get, the more I drop the feeling of needing to be what other people expect me to be, and that's an amazing feeling. But I'm still not. I'm getting there, and it feels like every month or it feels more and more in that direction. But I'm still aspirational with what you said. I still want to really, really believe with every cell in my body that other people's feelings are not my responsibility. And
yes.
it's hard. It's hard. I'm much better than I was before, though.
Well, I seek out people who remind me I have the responsibility is to love myself. I seek that out. And I surround myself with people who keep telling me that because it's so easy to get off track and you have children, I have children, you have a daughter. But that adds a whole nother layer to
Yeah.
I'm making these decisions because they are what I need to do right now. And I'm living as this person I choose to be because I am this is who I am. And would my mother have agreed? 99% of the time, no.
Yeah. But I think what an incredible lesson you give your children by showing them that's how they should aspire to be. That obviously still be kind and all the good thing, modeling
Right.
decency and all of that. But yeah, that ultimately your primary responsibility is to yourself. And that because I saw my mother put other people first a lot, and that was part of what made her incredible. But then I also didn't know how to do otherwise. I didn't know how to live another way. And I think when you show your kids that you believe that you are worth that importance, then that gives them a really beautiful model for how they should live their life in the future.
Well, yeah, I think I get to say this now. You're the kind of mom I wanted, and I'm the kind of
Wow.
mom I wanted. I'm the kind of mom I wanted.
Yeah, but then but then I think, well, my child isn't me. So what would have worked for me may not work for her. And so I know, even though I'm
That's true.
trying to be the parent that I would have wanted, I know I have to keep reminding myself that she is not me. And so I'm still going to make mistakes. But what I want to do is be someone in the future who can have the hard conversations with her and she can tell me, this really hurt me, or I really wish you'd done this differently. And I can just listen and not be defensive or not try to justify why I was the way I was or get hurt. I'm sure I'll be hurt and sad and all that, but I want her to feel like that I recognize I made mistakes and I can apologize.
I love that, and I will tell you because my kids are much older that you will get that.
Yeah.
You will because you're already guaranteed the thoughts you're having right now are who you are inside, who you're manifesting, who you're growing into. It's all choice. You're making these choices now. You're going to make it happen. So your writing is personal. It became about your experience. You look at your life and you can empathizing with the story you're writing, empathizing with the people in it because you're being in your personal story too. So what does writing look like for you in the near future? If there's any new ideas that,
Well, it's definitely like you said, more personal. It's a lot about family. And I think sometimes that little voice in my head is like, who do you think you are? Like there's nothing unusual about your family. There's nothing special about it. But I feel like your mother, your father, whatever your parenting family situation was growing up is so important for the rest of your life. And it is that way for everybody. And so whenever anyone says, oh, what I do is really personal, I'm instantly fascinated. Like I'm interested in other people's personal stories and I try to tell myself, well, maybe that means that mine is too. And I'm like, because that noise, the family noise, the life noise that I listened to for a long time when my parents were alive is gone. And I just now have this voice in me saying, this is what you need to do. And whether it works out in my favor or not, I don't know, but this is what I need to do. So it is very personal. A lot of it's about family and unpacking all of the sort of mysteries of that and the feelings I get that still don't understand. I still don't understand why my relationship with my father made me feel not important, not interesting, not worth spending time with, like all that, why it really did a number on my confidence. And I think everyone has a version of that,
Right.
in their own life. And that's why I relate to other people's personal stories. And so I just hope that the same thing will happen with mine.
Yeah, that's pretty clear. Very clear. Sounds really clear. Your unique story, and I want to say everyone has story of their lives, how they got to be here and what they've chosen on their path, but everyone's story is incredibly unique. It's so unique, it's so specific. It has all the nuances, all the traps and, elevated moments. It just so I find the stories I'm hearing on the doing the podcast are so amazing. I'm so Alison has what you shared today. I had no idea. I'm just grateful you shared it with me. I'm just so grateful.
Well, thank you for giving me space to do it.
Yeah. So how is it? I want to ask this because I can. I raised these kids and no grandparents. My daughter
Yeah.
I'm a lot older than you. I didn't realize we're the, I'm going to
Oh,
be, I'm 68. So
that's not a lot older.
no, I'm not a lot older. I mean, just a
No.
few a generation or two ahead. But,
Though we're still Gen X.
Gen X, really?
Yeah.
68, 57.
I'm 51.
No, I'm six. Do you think I'm 58 or 68?
68. I thought that was still within Gen X because I'm at the tail end of
I might be
Gen
Gen
X.
X, so I'm very
Yeah.
impressed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
like solidarity right there.
I'm very happy. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
I'm part of it. I'm part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Those labels of groups. So I think about I've been raising kids. They never met my parents. They were gone. My son, I was 30. Okay, so yeah, they never met them. And so I did this thing where I had photos in the hallway, like this was my mom, this was my dad, they're there together. And tell them names and we tell stories about my childhood and do you identify with any of this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are photos everywhere in my house. And I even call when we walk in, there's a hallway and it's just covered in photos. And most of the people in them are dead. And so we call it our ofrenda because, like, in the movie Coco, where they have all the photos up and
Yes,
then
yes.
on the Day of the
The
Dead, they
Day of the
go
Dead.
and yeah, so it's like that's what I live in that space. And
Mhm.
I think, yeah, because my mother was so important to me and died years before my daughter was born,
Yeah.
I almost feel like she can't know me without knowing my mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sorry, I'm such a sensitive kid still. And then my mother did this really miraculous thing that I have mixed feelings about, but it's really beautiful. She knew she was dying and she made recordings of herself telling family stories for her future grandchildren.
Wow. Oh,
And I
wow.
wasn't married. I'm her only child. So she knew that this was something would happen years after she was gone and not even sure what happened at all. And so I have those
Hmm.
and I've played them for my daughter. We don't play them a lot
Hmm.
because it's a little weird, that
Yeah,
she's,
it's kind of weird.
but I have and she knows they're there and you know, I have complicated feelings about it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful gift, but it also part of me, this is part of the family unpacking that we have to do. I wanted that for myself. I was the one who was there and taking care of her every day. I'm the one who misses her. So I wanted those stories for me.
Yeah, of
Not
course.
some future person that may or may not have ever
No.
been born. But again, I just didn't have the ability I think even recognize I felt that way. And then to say that to her was beyond me at the time.
Wow. I wish I had stories of it that she said.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it is a gift. I recognize that.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Your mother was brilliant.
She was
Brilliant.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
recently bought a little baby owl fuzzy stuffy thing It
Yeah.
hangs in my car, and I named it Magic Max because my mother's name was Maxine.
Oh,
And she travels with me every day. I kiss Magic Max, and
oh,
I say, "We're going for a ride, Max." And that was my mom. And I keep her in my car because she influences this beautiful new, this life that I've come to find because of her, gifts and even the sad and hard things, how much I got from that loving person. I honor her and I kiss Max today in my car because I'm a little cuckoo at times, but I really appreciate the gift. I don't take it for
no.
granted. I
I don't think
don't.
that's cuckoo at all. I think it's beautiful. I think it's
Oh,
beautiful because you're keeping the best part of her with you.
yes, yes, and the owl because so much of what she did, bad or good, the things that our parents do, which makes us realize they're not well emotionally, there's something wrong. Everything about her has informed all I am. When I named it Magic because it's really become a magical, it was a magical person in my life, really magical. Yeah. So I so appreciate your story about your mom because she was, wow, what a person. What a person. Like her
She
daughter.
was.
You're something else, Allison.
That's nice of you. But yeah, I was intimidated by her. She was a therapist, and I guess therapists aren't supposed to take gifts from their clients, but I didn't live and grow up knowing that because my mom she would just every holiday get cards, every Christmas, I guess it was, get so many cards. Our house would just be flooded with cards, and she would tape them to the banister of the stairs as they came in, starting in like mid-December or whatever. And by the end, the whole banister going up to the second floor was just covered in cards of all of her former clients, just writing, or current, just writing to her about their lives and how much she meant to them. It was really, sometimes I would read the cards, but I often didn't really want to. It felt invasive of me to do that. And so, but it was just this visual reminder of how much she's meant to so many people.
Wow. Well, it's this is podcast is like beyond the intimacy and the sharing you're doing. It's just what a heart opening experience. I'm so flooded with feelings. Like we have been this journey of like this. Wow, and
I know.
you're young. You're still going to do a lot of stuff.
Well, that's nice.
I
If
better
you'll, if you,
stay in touch with you because
oh, sure. Well, you just got to focus on people who have no siblings whose parents have died. And then we're free to talk about everything, because we're not
oh
worried
no.
about anyone.
That's how I qualify every new podcast interview.
Yeah.
Have you lost your
Yeah.
parents? You
Yes.
have
How many
siblings?
immediate family members do you have? How many people do you not want to, embarrass by telling your most
Those are the
intimate
only people that will
stories?
come on from now on. You've set the bar very high. So if somebody wants to read your writing, where do they go, Allison?
I have a website. It's not very schmancy or anything, but it's AlisonMcCook.com, Allison with one L. And I'm working on other things. I aspire to write a book someday, so that hopefully will be, but that's, not in any immediate future, unfortunately, but hopefully one day. That's what
Okay,
I'm
well,
trying to manifest for myself. And
all
then
right. And when
there's
I,
like part of why I say it too is that I'll be embarrassed if I don't do it. The more people I tell, then
that's
the
true.
more people I have to face if I don't actually do it.
I like that. A lot of things I've done are because I've said I'm going to do it enough
Exactly.
times publicly.
Exactly. So social shame will keep you going.
It's great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I look forward to everything you do, and I personally am very interested in this book because it will include this deep love that you have brought to this podcast, this loving kindness, this human connection that I've been yearning for a lifetime. Thank you.
No, no, anytime.
He's like,
You want to
I feel
cry?
like
Call
somebody gave
me.
me a hug.
Anytime you want to feel all the feelings. I'm always very deep in the feelings, so
I love it. I
happy
love
to.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I always it's been a lot to me to talk to you too. Thank you.